What's up, guys? My name is Jesus. I'm a Z1 Tech here at Z1. We're doing a level 2 power pack on this Frontier here. The level 2 power pack includes the air intake, an exhaust, and a plenum spacer, and a tune. While he's here, we're also going to install a catch can. So this here is the D41 plenum spacer. It goes between the upper, or the intake and the runners, just for a little bit more flow. Almost like a plenum spacer on the DE platforms on the motorsport side. So with this, you'll gain a few more horsepower. In this box here, we have the Z1 exhaust. You have a few options on the tip. He went with the black tip. I feel like the black and the blue will complement each other really well. We also, in this box here, we have the air intake. That just replaces all your factory intakes and comes with all the grommets that you'll need, all the hoses and whatnot. Let's just get started. So we're gonna start with the plenum spacer first, just because it involves us taking a lot of the parts we're already gonna have to take off. So first off, we wanna take the intake tube off and then the throttle body after that. After we get that stuff off, we'll then take the plastics off and all the hoses that are in our way to take the plenum off. F sensor next. And then you have this little clip here. You could get it with your fingers. Sometimes you'll need some pliers. 1 second. A couple of these tabs to get the air box out of its spot. All right, now that we have the intake tube off, we got a lot more room to work with here. We're gonna take the throttle body off the intake, just because we have coolant lines running to it and we don't want to open the coolant system. So those are gonna be 4 5mm Allen keys. Throttle body does have the coolant lines attached to them, so we'll just move this out of our way and work around it. Once you take those coolant lines off, then you'll have to bleed the system. But if you just put it to the side, you don't have to worry about bleeding the coolant system afterwards. So now what we will do is, there's a few hoses we're gonna have to disconnect, and then some 12mm bolts that hold the plenum to the runners. Then we'll just put our plenum spacer back on, and then it's just a reverse process from there. What we're gonna disconnect now is gonna be the evap electrical connectors and all the hoses to them. We do have a 10mm back here that's holding some of these lines to the manifold. And after we disconnect the evap stuff, then we'll move on to the PCV hoses on the back side of the plenum. So first, we need to get this hose off the evap solenoid and just kind of get it out of our way here, just like that. Move it out of our way, and then here is the 10mm holding this little valve. It's just a 10mm, just like that. Move this out of our working area. Just put the bolt back in just so you don't lose that when you reinstall this stuff. The next line we're going to take off is the PCV line on the back side of the manifold here. It's just a spring clamp, just like the rest of the hoses. Break the hose free and just pull off there. Once we have those two systems disconnected from the manifold, we then want to pull these 12mm bolts off of the manifold. It's just a bracket holding the manifold to the head so it doesn't flex on you. So let me go get the tools for that here. Bolts are a little awkward. All right, so we got those 2 bolts off there. Once we got all that stuff removed, now we move on to the 8 12mm bolts that are holding the plenum to the runners, and after that, that's when we put the plenum spacer on. So there is a torque sequence. You have to take these off just so you don't damage the plenum or even crack it. So on our install manual, it'll give you the sequence to remove and install them, but I'll give you a quick run. It's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Basically a star pattern, but if you follow that, you should be good with installing and removing the plenum. 1, if I could find the second one. 2, 4, 5. Use the ratchet for the rest of them here. So once you broke those loose, you just go back and just completely loosen all of them. Once you have all those bolts and nuts loose, all you'll do is just pull up and the plenum should come right out. All right, we'll just set this to the side, install a plenum spacer, and then we'll just reinstall everything back together. So our plenum spacers do come with new gaskets and hardware. So if you're debating on changing your gaskets, this could probably be a little upgrade while you're in there. It does come with little plates and everything you'll need to install this, like factory. Just gonna lay this guy in here. Should just fall right into the grooves, just like that. Like that. Here you got your gasket installed, and you just want to set this back in the same spot that the OEM plenum came off, and then this will just stack right on top of the plenum, or the plenum will stack right on top of here. Excuse me. Once you have the plenum spacer dropped in its spot, it is a one-way direction, so there's no way to get it backwards. If you saw, struggled a little bit there, but it lined up on the studs, and then you should be good from there. So for this mod, there's two options. You can use the studs, or you can use just bolt. For this one, we're gonna go ahead and take the studs out and put all bolts throughout the whole thing, just so we know the clamping force is good. What we're gonna do here is take these studs out and then put the manifold over it and then bolt it down. We won't be reusing those. Like I said, we'll be replacing them with bolt. All right. Once those are removed, we'll then put the plenum back on and then just secure all eight holes in the plenum with bolts that we provide, and then we'll continue from there. Make sure you're pretty careful and make sure you don't misalign these so you don't cross thread anything.
Do you put the extended studs in it or just do the bolts?
No, we're doing bolts. So with the plenum spacer, we supply these little hardware kits. So you'll just need the 8 bolts to secure the manifold. These are longer than your OEM ones, just because of the plenum spacer. So then you just get these started by hand. Might have to wiggle the plenum here a little bit just to get them in and started. Back there, and just one last one. It's gonna be a 12 millimeter, same as when you pulled the OEM ones off. There is a torque spec that you have to tighten these down and a sequence. Let me go ahead and get this torque wrench set up and then we'll torque this stuff down. All right, so the torque spec on these bolts are gonna be 18 foot-pounds. So let's see here. They get about even and then we'll go back and torque them down completely. All right, so after we got all of that torqued down, we'll then just basically reverse the process from what we did earlier. Put the bracket back on for the solenoid, connect all the connectors, and clip the harnesses where they go, and the hose. So we'll just start here on the right side. Get this 10 back off. Hose there in the clip. 10mm. Got this harness here. Put that guy back on. Then we'll work on the throttle body. Just got to get these started by hand. We'll snug them down with the ratchet. All right, got the throttle body back bolted onto the manifold. Can't forget the PCV hose in the back of the manifold. We'll just plug it back in here and then make sure to get the clamp. All right, so we're almost done here. We got all the hardware tightened back down on the manifold and all the hoses and connectors. Last thing we need to do here is this plate where it bolts up from the manifold to the bracket from the OEM setup. We do include that bracket in our kit here, so let's go ahead and get that guy and then install it. So that's come with 2 extra M8s, and then you'll use your OEM ones for the bottom. And then this just takes place of the hose, and you just bolt on, and it should support the manifold from all the weight on that side, so it doesn't cause the manifold to crack or anything. It is a little tight down in here, but it is doable. Just want to loosely have these installed so you have a little wriggle room. Then you get your OEM bolts. I think he was right. Do feel like wow. Hold on. Have your bolts started on the top going to the manifold. You just run your OEM bolts through the bracket that's bolted to the head, and then we provide nuts for the back side of those. So you want to go ahead and just thread those on by hand, and then we'll torque them down here afterwards. Use a crank on these. As long as they're snug, you should be fine. So once you bolt your bracket onto the OEM bracket and the manifold, you'll then put your intake tube back on, and your intake side will be finished. But because we're putting that intake on this car as well, we're just going to go ahead and leave that off and continue to remove the air box, the OEM air box, and then we'll throw in all the Z1 stuff in there. So we're going to install these little spacers onto this bracket here. So what this does is bring the bracket up, so then our engine cover will sit like the OEM engine cover would sit. So all it does is just raise it because of the plenum spacer. All it is 2 10mm so you don't drop them. You'll just put this to the side, thread these guys on by hand. They don't have to be torqued super tight. Just like that. Then you just bolt these back right on top of them. Hold on, let me make sure that's tight. All right, so we're going to continue to remove the OEM air box, so we could then put the Z1 air intake in it. So Once the tube is off and the top piece of the air box, you'll then remove the 10 millimeters holding the box to the chassis. So, got one here. And then you just pull up carefully. You do have a hose on this side you want to disconnect. All right, you're gonna want to get your fender grommet and install it. Then let's go ahead and open the box to see what's in there. See what comes with the kit here. You got your air box here. Also have your intake tube, air filter. It's your traditional air filter. The way that these grommets go, the arrow, little triangle on the grommet goes into the fender. Could either, this is supposed to go on as two pieces individual. So this will go in after you install the grommet through the hole here. So let's go ahead and install that. Just gotta split the grommet. Looks like that's in there. And then we'll go into the fender liner here and then install this velocity stack through the fender liner. There's a couple clips you'll have to take apart. So you got a clip here and then a couple of screws here to then pull this back and another screw here. And then you'll be able to access where this guy will then pop into that grommet. Off of this fender liner. You just need enough room to then stick this guy in here. So once that's installed, you just carefully put this guy back. So once we got the grommet through the fender here and the velocity stack into the grommet, we're gonna start assembling the airbox. There's really not a lot to assemble, but you got this grommet just to put in through here. Just make sure it's goes into the groove. So once this gasket's installed here, we're gonna move on to the other two gaskets that go here. Would be these guys. Kind of a press fit situation, so it might be a little harder for some people. Once you got the grommets in the air box, you want to find your little bracket, the two M6 bolts, bolt up the bracket on the side here, and then it will bolt on to the factory mounting point down here in the engine bay, just to give it another spot for reinforcement. The nut and bolt combo here, pushing against this stud on this grommet here to get it in a spot, and just finesse it in there, line it up. Once that's in, go ahead and put the grommet around the intake here. Once that's in, we supply an M6x1 bolt. Just go ahead and tighten that down. I have to adjust the boot here, but all in all, that's in there. Now we need to assemble our intake tube. We have to mount our mass flange, and then install our MAF itself. For that, we're gonna need this guy here. Take this out the wrapper. All right, so once we have our MAF installed, we wanna go ahead and replace our PCV hose with the one we supply in the kit. You will reuse your same spring clamps for the install. Let me go ahead and pull the old one off and then we could compare them too. As you can tell, it's a little bit longer just to be able to connect to the aftermarket intake. So once we got the clamps transferred over, just want to go ahead and put this guy back in here. Make sure you slide the clamp back. Now we're ready to assemble the air filter on the actual air pipe, intake pipe. Go ahead and unwrap that. filter on the pipe there. Make sure you get it all the way to the line. Just tighten it down with a Phillips or a flat. The intake tube is all assembled. We'll just need to get our coupler and our 2 clamps on it, and then we'll just slide the intake into the box and then tighten everything up. Just a little silicone. Slide this guy on the throttle body. Make sure you got your clamp there. You just want to slide the air filter into the box here. Little assistance there. There you go. Add a little bit more on this side to help us out. There you go. You just want to tighten down your clamps. So all that is tightened up. You want to connect your PCV hose. So instead of using the spring clamp, we had the kit comes with a worm gear clamp, but you go ahead and use the worm gear clamp that they provided. And after that, after you install the PCV hose, you want to install your MAP sensor harness. Just connect it just like that. You could leave the little tab on that connected to the OEM air box or air tube, or you could cut it. Either way works. It's more of a preference thing. Once your intake is all bolted in and installed, you're ready to put your engine cover back on. So let's go ahead and grab that real quick. All right, so same way you took it off, by gently pulling up on it, you'll just gently push down on it. Just have to line up the grommets to the little post here. Just like that, intake and the plenum spacer are installed. Next thing we're going to work on is the exhaust system. The level 2 power pack comes with a cat back, so we'll go ahead and start on that. First, we're going to unbox the exhaust system just to see what components come in the box, and then we'll go ahead and take apart the OEM exhaust off the truck. Put this guy right open. Got a couple of lights here. Alright, looks like everything is there, and then we got the clamp. So here we got the full exhaust for the D41. This is your Y merge pipe. This is your crossover pipe to connect the other bank to the muffler section. And then you have your mid pipe coming out of the muffler to your rear pipe that your tail pipe will connect to at the end there. So we're gonna go ahead and take this OEM exhaust off and then go ahead and install this one. All right, so we're gonna first take off the hanger bolts just to drop the hanger. One here, right after the cross pipes there, and there's another one right up in here we're gonna take off. After that, we'll take off the 2 off the, on each cat, and then we'll just slide the whole exhaust system off as one piece. After the 2 hangers are unbolted, we're gonna go ahead and take the 2 bolts off the cats here on each side, and then go ahead and drop the exhaust from there. Now that those are off, I'm gonna go grab somebody to give me a hand to pull this off, and then we should be good. Now that we have the exhaust off, I'm gonna go ahead and take the OEM brackets off of here that we're gonna need for the aftermarket one, and bolt them right back onto the chassis. Bolt these guys back right in here. All right. Tighten these guys back up. All right, so at this point, we'll just start piecing the new one on. So, let's go ahead and get this done. Slide it on this bushing. Looks like this was a little loose, easier. I'm gonna hand tight these the nuts on the studs here, just so the pipe doesn't fall off. But do not snug these down until the end. These will be the last ones you snug down. Go ahead and tighten these back up. So then put the crossover pipe on here with one of the provided clamps. Go ahead and slide the clamp on, and then the crossover pipe. You can snug the clamp down a little bit, but don't tighten it too much, just because you're gonna have to tweak the exhaust as you go. To move on to the muffler section that will connect here. Snug your muffler down. You then want to put the clamp on the end of the muffler to then connect your mid pipe over the axle and into the bushing there. Snug that guy down a little bit, just so it doesn't fall. And finally, we'll go ahead and install the rear section of the exhaust. Pre-installed, go ahead and slip it into the bushing there, and then slide the clamp towards the other pipe. We'll then just snug that down, and then we'll adjust the exhaust one final time and then tighten it all down. Everything looks like it's aligned where it's supposed to be. So then we'll just start from the first clamp to until we get to the back, and everything should line up as it should be. All right. You do want to torque down on these. If not, you will have a small exhaust leak. So make sure you get these pretty tight. All right. So to finish the exhaust up, I'm going to go ahead and put the exhaust tip on it. Usually you just eyeball it to which you like. Then same thing like the clamps, make sure you torque down on these guys because your tip will fall off. There you go, full install of your exhaust.